Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Reflection. We're going to do a walkthrough tutorial just like you would get on the day of delivery, going through the operation of our unit so you have something to refer back to. There is also a deeper dive on some of these components as well as other components if your name brand differs in our Helpful Hacks section on YouTube. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, share, do all those awesome things so you can help support the channel and we can continue to do this. On the front of our unit, of course, we have our kingpin. We also have our 7-way plug right here. That 7-way plug is going to transfer all of your lights from your towing vehicle to the fifth wheel on here, as well as our battery charge line that'll pull off the alternator of the vehicle and charge your battery while you're traveling down the road. Last thing you'll have is your brake controller. Once it initiates off the brake pedal, it will send a brake signal through here to the brakes on the trailer. Well, speaking of brakes, we're also going to have our breakaway cable right here. This breakaway cable needs to be fastened to the truck itself, not to the hitch. The reason being is if something ever happens to the hitch, fifth wheel hitch in the bed of the truck, this is going to separate, pull off of the truck. We want that pin to pull out of that breakaway box and activate the brakes on our trailer. Now that can only happen if we have a good 12-volt system on our fifth wheel, meaning that we have a good solid charged battery. If we don't, then that system is not going to activate. We also need to make sure that pin is inserted in that box at all times, otherwise it will be locking up and activating those brakes when you don't want them to. In our front pass-through bay, we have our Furrion solar charge controller. Of course, we have our solar panels up on the roof. This is going to convert our solar power into a charging power for our battery system on our unit. There are a few settings on there in regards to what type of batteries you have, so on and so forth. I'd refer to the owner's manual just to be specific about different types and everything. It's a little bit to go into on that kind of stuff. So just know that all that stuff's in your owner's manual to get a better idea for your solar system. To the right of it, we're going to have our solar prep disconnect. Now what that's going to do is basically just disconnect our solar from our unit. In the event that we don't want to use it for whatever reason, we can go ahead and just shut it off, and that is going to completely disconnect it from our battery system, so it's not going to charge our system or anything. Now that is going to be separate from our actual battery disconnect. So if our battery disconnect is off, then this solar system is on. It's still going to connect to our batteries and charge our batteries off of that solar system, even if our disconnect is off, so no concern there. As far as our actual battery disconnect goes, it literally does what it says. It disconnects the battery from our RV system. We want to use this when we store our unit unplugged so we can conserve the battery power in here. Anytime we have our unit plugged in, whether it's storage or use, whatever the case may be, we want to make sure that switch is on. So the converter system, which is our battery charging system, will actually go ahead and charge that battery when we're plugged in. In here, we're going to have some fuses and resettable fuses that are thermal. They're going to automatically reset, so some slide outs and stuff operate off of some of these things. If your slide out stops, the electric ones, then you want to give it about 30 to 60 seconds to kind of cool down and then maybe go operate it again. There's not necessarily a whole lot in here that needs to be maintained. So don't worry about it. That's just where everything is. In the event that you have to go that deep into troubleshooting for 12-volt power, you would come here. We also have a set of fuses and stuff inside the unit we'll go over later. This is our actual converter, that charging system we spoke about. It's going to change our 110 power, which is coming in right here, to 12-volt power going right here out to our battery. That's going to go ahead and keep our batteries charged up. We do see a couple of fuses right here. We can check in the event this system isn't outputting correctly. This is going to operate whenever you're plugged in. If not, it's not going to operate, right? You have a little cooling fan on there, you'll hear operating whenever it is plugged in. Over to the left over there, we do have our inverter prep system. An inverter is going to change 12-volt power to 110 power. In the event we don't have a plug-in, want to operate a couple of small 110 appliances, we can do that. You are pre-wired for that system. And then we're also going to have our LCI leveling system right here. Our main control panel for all that is right above us, and that is where all your jacks and everything are going to go to as far as that system is concerned. We do have a few fuses on there. In the event it's not working, those operate our individual jacks. We do have other videos on our jacks and how it operates. Of course, we're going to go over the operation of this one too. Those will be under our Helpful Hacks section. Now I'll give you a quick turn right here, and we have our actual front individual leveling jacks. These are for our landing gears. On the bottom right here, we do have a little cap. That bottom cap would come off, and in there is our override. We have a 3/8 nut in there. You put that socket on a drill and you can manually run this jack up and down. Now, of course, these are individual, one on each side. Before you do that, you do want to disconnect your 12-volt plugs before you override that system. You only want to do this if you're having an issue with the jack, can't figure it out. You would go ahead and put that in there, and you would just run that drill in forward or reverse, depending on which way you need to operate that jack. Also want to add, with our leveling system, we want to make sure we have at least 6 holes showing on these landing gears. Otherwise, you're going to run out of stroke on these jacks in order to level your unit. So make sure we're using at least 6 holes. We can see them, count them on there, and you won't run into any errors as far as trying to level your system in regards to that. All right, on our driver's side of our unit, if we open up our door, we have one of 2 propane tanks. The other one's going to be the exact same spot on the opposite side. Generally on this side, you'll find your regulator for this system. You have 2 tanks, so you have a dual propane regulator. A dual propane regulator, it has a selector switch on it, so you can choose which tank to be your primary tank. The way that works is you have both tanks on, and that primary tank is going to feed first. When you run out of propane in that tank, it is automatically going to start pulling off of that secondary tank. Now, your switch is still on your primary, so your gauge will reflect what's in that one. So when it turns red, it's empty. You can turn that selector switch to that secondary tank. It should turn green if you have enough in it, at which time you can get the previous tank refilled or replaced. Moving over to our pass-through bay right here, we do have our LCI electronic leveling system for our electric jacks in the front and the rear. We also have our control center right here. We'll go over a little bit more information on those 2 items. So we can see our electronic leveling system right here, made by Lippard. If we kick it on, we can see on our main display right here, we're going to have our battery voltage. Whenever we hit our arrows, it brings us to our auto hitch height. Our auto hitch height is used after we have been camping. Basically, this will bring us back to the point that the trailer was at whenever we disconnected from our hitch on the truck, so you don't have to guess what level it needs to be at. If you want to use that feature, you just hit enter and it will begin to extend those jacks out and put it at the height that it was in before you went into that auto level. Our next one is auto retract all. We would go to that once we are hooked up to the truck. We can hit enter and it will retract all of our jacks. Now, you should definitely double check your 5th wheel hitch and ensure that you are locked in before you do this, because once you pull away, all the weight and everything relies on that 5th wheel hitch at that point. So be sure you're locked in good before you hit that auto retract all. Our next one is auto retract rear. If we want to just bring up the rear jacks and leave the front landing jacks down, we can go through that. And our last one is manual level. Manual level is if we wanted to go in, hit enter, and we can see right here we have our degree marks. Now, 0 is our ultimate goal. That would mean that we're level. We would use these functions right here to raise those jacks. You'll have orange lights that pop up in the corners to let you know that those are indicating the areas where it is low. So if this blinking light on the left-hand side is orange, then that means that our left side is low. Same thing on the right, front, and rear. So we would just raise that until that light goes out, and eventually once we hit that 0 mark, our green light in the middle will indicate that we are leveled out. If we need to retract those jacks, we'll just hold down that retract button for just a second. Our red light will come on indicating retract, and we can hit those buttons again and it will retract those jacks. Now, front will run front, rear will run rear, and then if we want to do left or right, it will do those left or right jacks. To take off that retract, you just hold that button down for a second and it will go back. Now, auto retract will once again retract everything. And our next one, it shows us our stroke on our jacks. So the LF and RF, that's left front and right front. So this is the amount that those jacks are extended out. And they only have so much stroke on them depending on what jacks they are. So if we stroke out and we run out of jack, you will get an error letting you know out of stroke. And that means that we need to put some blocks or get on a more level area that it doesn't have any more jack left to level that system, and it will stop the auto level. Same thing, left rear, right rear for our jacks. Also on this system, right whenever you turn it on, You can get your voltage display on there. And if you want to just operate your front landing gears, you just got to the campground, you're trying to disconnect from your truck, you don't have to go into that manual mode. You can go straight into operation by hitting those front jacks right there, and that will operate the landing gears in the front. Same thing if you want to retract them, hold down that retract for a second, and then it will operate once again just the front landing gears. From that point, you go into your auto level and allow the unit to level out. Now, I want to make sure that we're not moving around in the unit while it is auto leveling. It'll take a few minutes to hit that auto level point. Once it says it's complete, then you're free to go ahead and open up your doors and get inside the unit and start setting everything up. On our control center, we have our satellite cable and auxiliary ports for our coax connections. If we have outdoor satellite, we can hook that up. Park cable, we hook that up there, and if we have a third connection we'd like to run through all our TVs, we can hook that up right there. We have our quick connect right here for our blue coiled hose. We can hook up a spray port there. This coax port on the side here runs directly to our outside TV that we can go ahead and hook whatever we want directly to that as well. We have a switch over here for our front cap lights and our slide lights. And we have another switch up in the top right corner, kind of hard to see. That is our water pump. That 12-volt water pump will pull from our onboard water storage, and it will supply water to our faucets on the inside in the event that we have actual water in that tank. We'll talk about how to fill that in a second. Our other option is our city water connection. Our city water connection is right here. This is where we would hook that water hose up. If we have a bib at the campground, we can hook that water hose up, turn it on. That will supply water to our fixtures. So if you didn't have that, you want to fill your fresh tank and use that water pump. Right here we have the combination of all the different options for how our water can go out into our unit. So we have our dry camping. So this would be if we have already filled our tank, we would go ahead and turn it to here. We turn that water pump on and it will pull from that tank. Next one is our power fill tank. We would have it in this option here to be able to fill that tank through that city water connection there. Now that onboard storage, once you add water to it, that does add more weight to our unit. If we don't want it, there is a valve underneath that we can go ahead and pull that and drain that water out. We don't want any more than what we need because of the added extra weight, and we don't want to leave it in there too long because that water will become stagnant over time. If we have a city water connection at the campsite, we can go ahead and hook that hose up right here, turn it to this configuration, and then we have our city water directly out to all of our stuff. Winterization option would pull from right here into our unit, and that end of that hose would need to go into a bottle of RV antifreeze. This is to be able to winterize your unit. There are more steps to this process. You can find that in your owner's manual or in our video on Hap's Helpful Hacks. Our last one is siphon sanitize to tank, which would be this configuration here. That is to sanitize that onboard water storage tank. You could do a mixture of bleach and water into that tank to go ahead and sanitize it and clean it out. Our next option over here is our black tank flush. That is to go ahead and flush out that sewage system out of our black tank. We would hook that up. We'll talk a little more about that when we get to our tank system. We do have a gray tank valve right here for that secondary gray tank outlet over here. Once again, we will go over the gray and black tanks when we get to those outlets. And we have a GFCI protected outlet right here on the side. On this unit, we do have our two gray tanks and our black tank valves there below the control panel. Also in that front storage compartment, you do have your tire link system by Lippard. It means you already have your monitor in there as well as your sensors on the tires, ready to be able to monitor your stuff while you're traveling down the road. We have our 50 amp power supply right here. It's a twist lock plug. You put that plug in, turn it to the right, lock it in. Have that retainer ring on there. We want to go ahead and tighten that up so there's no risk of that cord accidentally coming out. And we want to make sure we plug this in first, then plug it into our service at the campground, and also make sure that our ACs are off so we don't cause any surges to our appliances. We're at our slide out and our dump station. Our slide out is going to be a 12-volt powered motor that runs that in and out. That motor is located under the underbelly. You can't see it, but there is an override for this slide out. We'll show you on the other side. We'll see a hole in the J-wrap right here. You're going to have a post sticking out of the frame, and you can put your crank handle in there and run that slide in or out in the event that that motor fails to get you out of a jam. Below here we have our dump station. In the compartment there we have our valves for our two gray tanks and our black tank. Everything's going to come out of this port right here. We hook our sewer hose up, go to our dump station. Let's talk about our tanks. Two gray tanks. That is going to be your sink water as well as shower water that is going into those two tanks. We can leave that valve open all the time as long as we have the connection to the dump station and let that drain out constantly. Now our black tank, however, that is sewage coming from our toilet. We want to make sure we leave that valve closed until we're actually ready to dump. Reason being is we're putting solids in there. We always want to make sure we have water in that tank so solids don't dry up and solidify in that tank, and it won't be easy to get all that stuff out. So the process goes like this for dumping. Black tank, you're ready to dump, you pull that black tank handle and let everything drain out. You have your black tank flush in there too. You hook your water hose up, you turn that water hose on, it's going to send water to a jet port on the opposite side, spraying water down and any debris that's in that tank over to this valve and help flush out that system. When you're satisfied with it, you turn your black tank flush off and you close your black tank valve, and then you want to go on the inside to your toilet, hold the pedal down and put several gallons of fresh water in that system as well as your chemicals. This is how the owner's manual is going to tell you how to do it. We do have some other pro tips on our helpful hacks section that you can go check out for black tank flush. If you want to do it a different way, we have some advice on that. But the main thing to remember is that we keep our black tank valve closed all the time unless we are ready to dump. Beyond that, over in the middle of the underbelly, you'll see a red and blue line down there. Those are our low point drains. We would use that for that winterization. That's where we would drain the water out of our system. We're going to notice our rear leveler right here. We can override that one by pulling that black plug out right there, disconnecting our 12 volts from it, putting a socket in there attached to a drill, and we can automatically retract that system with the drill in the event we need to override it. Right behind our axles, we'll notice that white valve. That is to drain out our fresh tank system. The two blue hoses right there are overflows for that fresh tank in the event that you put too much water in the system. On the rear of our unit, we are pre-wired for that Furrion backup camera system up there. We add the camera up there. When we turn our running lights on, it's going to power it up. We can see behind us while we're backing up or traveling down the road. We also have a receiver hitch down at the bottom here and our 4-way plug. That way we can tow a trailer behind us. We have a weight rating on that. Make sure you're following the appropriate guidelines for that. We also have our factory supplied ladder right here. Why do we need that? We need to gain access to our roof. We need to make sure we're getting up there and checking the sealant up there every 60 to 90 days. We also want to check our sealant around our trim, our lights, our windows, anywhere where we put a hole in the side of the unit. We need to make sure that the sealant around it is good. We're looking for any cracking, peeling, deterioration of the sealant that can allow water entry into your unit that will decay it, rot it out, and you don't want any of that stuff. This is the most #1 neglected thing when people buy campers is the sealant. Whether you keep it under a cover or not, every 60 to 90 days you want to check the sealant on your unit and make sure that we're not allowing any water into our unit. Manufacturers require this. It's in the owner's manual. 60 to 90 days, maintain it like you would change your oil on your vehicle. We also need to get up on the roof after trips and make sure that no low-lying tree limbs or anything messed up our rubber, poking holes, scratches, or anything like that. And we need to clean our roof at least twice a year as well. On the driver's side of our unit, of course, we have our LP tank, just like the other side in that first compartment. More access to our pass-through bay. We're also going to have our Dometic furnace right here. Gas is what's going to heat it, 12 volts to operate it. We have our Furrion tankless water heater, same thing, 12 volts to operate, gas to heat that water. We'll go over the operation of those two when we get to the controls on the inside. Now below here we do have a quick connect for our LP system that will come off of those propane tanks. We want to put an external grill out here, we can. It's going to have a valve on it that points straight at the connection. We need to turn that valve to the side to be able to put that quick connect on there and then turn it back straight. That way the propane will actually flow out. Up top we have that black vent right there. That is for over our stovetop. We have the hood range vent. We want to ventilate that air out. We need to make sure the two tabs on it are open. When we store it, we can close them if we want to prevent insects and stuff from building any nest. Down here we also have our coax for our satellite and cable and antenna for outdoor TV, as well as that GFCI protected outlet out there. In all your wet locations, including your outside, interior, around your kitchen, bathroom, so on and so forth, those are going to be GFCI protected. There's a main breaker inside the unit on the breaker panel. We'll show you in a little while that you want to go to in the event that they are tripped. On the very rear of our unit, right in the J-wrap, you'll see a hole down below. That one is to be able to drop down your spare tire. Look through there, you'll see a little rod sticking out to put your crank handle on. Here we have our entry door. You'll notice on that entry door that it does have some resistance when you open and close it. That's our friction controlled hinges right there to keep the wind from slamming that door shut, or kids, whichever one is the scenario there. So it's a nice little feature to have to keep that door from slamming against the wall or closed. We have our solid steps right here. To store our solid steps, we lift them up and we lock them in. We want to guide that in. We don't want to just let them go because it can fall into the interior of the unit. These brackets just sit lightly up against the frame. We pull that little blue latch, make sure it's locked in, and we're good to go. While they're up, we'll show you the other hole right here. This is the hole for your override for that slide out on the opposite side. Now back to our steps, dropping them down, we pull that little blue lever right there and we bring them down. Now one thing we want to remember is after we have leveled out our unit with our jack system, we need to make sure we come over and level our steps out next. In order to do that, we have these two silver tabs right here, and that will extend and retract our legs. So we put it down in that level position, we can push those pins in and our legs will drop out, or we can feed them back in to get it to the appropriate level. We do that for a couple reasons. We want to make sure we have a nice flush threshold right here so our door will close properly, and we also want to make sure that we don't have any contact with the frame of the steps to the bottom of our door, causing any damage there. Last thing we're going to talk about before we go inside is our awning. 12-volt powered awning, 12-volt powered awning lights, and it is meant to be a sunshade primarily. It's not meant to keep out during storms or anything like that. So we got any bad weather coming in, roll it in. You're leaving your campsite for an extended period of time, roll it in. It's better safe than sorry because it can be an expensive insurance claim in the event it is damaged. We will have a little bit of light rain on there, a little bit of dew, condensation from our ACs up top might run on there, so on and so forth. What we don't want is that little bit of water to puddle up on our awning. So in order to keep that from happening, we want to pitch or lean our awning either to the front or the back. In order to do that, real easy. You're going to grab your awning arm right here. We're going to just pull it down, and now our awning is pitched to where that water can run off. Like I said, the awning arm is going to be the same on both sides, so it's capable of doing it in the front or the back. To put it back, just lift up like that, and then you can roll your awning back in. As you walk in the door, you'll see your control center off to the right. We can download the Compass Connect app and Bluetooth connect it to our phone so we can monitor our tanks and do a couple of these functions off of our phone. Up here, you'll see your tank levels as well as your battery level, letting you know what they are for your fresh tank, black tank, 2 gray tanks, and of course, like I said, your battery. These buttons right here control your interior and exterior lights. And then we also have our 12-volt tank heaters. Tank heaters are used for extreme cold weather to prevent our tanks from freezing up. We'll kick that on and that'll heat those tanks up. We have our 12-volt water pump right here. That is to pull that water from our fresh tank system right there. So if we don't have a city water connection, we kick that water pump on, it'll pull from the fresh tank. If we do have a city water connection, we want to turn that off because it doesn't need to be on. Now this is going to be an on-demand pump. If we turn our faucets on, we'll hear that pump more than likely be vibrating and pushing that water over to our faucets. If we're certain that we have all our faucets off and we hear that pump running, it's one of two things. Either your fresh tank is empty, in which case you want to turn that pump off so we don't burn it up, or you have a leak in your system and want to turn it off so we can investigate. Down below that we have our awning and our slide out. Once again, all of this stuff is 12-volt operated on here. For our dinette booth, this can go down into more sleeping space. Telescopic leg right here, we open that latch on both of them, and then this will push down, and then we can take our extra cushions, put them on top for more sleeping in this area. Our sofa right here has the manual recline. We pull that lever to kick back. We have our lights, massaging, and heated seats on here as well. We have our 16 cubic inch Furrion double door refrigerator right here. We'll go over that information right now. For our entertainment, we have our TV at every location. Where you have your TV, you have your cable antenna coax plate. And on behind this one, we're going to have our main antenna boost. So on that plate, you'll have a little button and a red light on there. The red light indicates that your antenna boost is on. When we are looking or scanning for antenna channels, we want to make sure it's on, and what it does is help you pick up more channels in that area. Whenever we want cable, part cable, we have that coax at the campsite. We want to make sure that's off. So we push the red button, turn the light off, and then we are making sure that we're not scrambling the channels in from cable whenever we scan on our TV. In our kitchen area, we have our 110 operated microwave with our hood vent fan in there to be able to ventilate out. We talked about the vent outside, want to make sure that's open. We have our 3-burner Furrion stovetop right here with a glass top to be able to give us more counter space. This is also how it needs to be in travel. Whenever we're ready to cook, we go ahead and flip that up. Have our burners accessible. We pick whatever burner we want. Of course, our propane does need to be on. We turn it to the flame icon and we use our striker right here, crank it until it lights. Now, the thing about our propane system is we can end up with air in our system, and that can cause faults with some of our appliances like our water heater or our furnace. So it's a good idea whenever you pull your unit out of storage or you change your tanks to come bleed the air out of the system. Those are the two instances when it generally happens. If you store your unit with the tanks off, you're going to end up with air in the lines. If you change your tanks out, you're going to end up with air in the lines. Real easy to do. Pull out of storage, turn your tanks on, come over here and just light your stove. It's going to take a little bit of time to get that air out of the system. Once it finally lights, let it run for about 60 seconds and you're going to be good to go before you go operate things like your water heater and your furnace. Down below that, you have your oven. This one is going to take a little bit longer. It's still going to have some air in the system on this one, so you may have to do this a couple times before it actually lights. But you'll go to your oven knob, turn it to the right while pushing in that knob. That'll be on that flame icon. Once again, manual crank until that pilot lights. We got to hold it down for about 30 seconds, let the thermocouple heat up, and then we can let off of that knob and turn it to the desired temperature. We should see that burner tube light up and we'll be good to go. You'll notice the knobs light up red. That lets you know that they are on and emitting gas out of the system. A little switch right here that turns them blue. It'll still turn red when you turn them on. Flip it down and it'll light up your oven down at the bottom. Right next to our hallway, we have our Furrion thermostat for our AC and heat. This will control that rear AC and heat for the entire unit. We'll go over the information on that now. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We of course set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now, whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Next to our thermostat, we have our max air fan that will control the fan, fantastic fan up in the kitchen. Pretty simple, 4 speeds for the fan, then you can turn it off, vent, open, and close. Down here we have our LP detector. That LP detector will let you know if there's any gas in your unit and alarm you to be able to go ahead and get out. It does have an audible alarm on here. You want to check at least once a month or every time you go camping to make sure it's working properly. We do have a little green light on there indicating it is powered up. It is hardwired into your battery system, so it's going to be on all the time, and it will have an expiration date either stamped on the front or the rear of that sensor, so we can make sure that we change that out whenever the time comes. Beyond that, we also are going to have our CO and smoke detectors mounted up in the ceiling with 9-volt batteries, and you make sure that those are powered up and change those batteries out whenever necessary. Here we have our 110 breaker panel. On here we'll have all our 110 appliances that are going to that, all labeled so you know what they're going to. We're also going to have that main GFCI breaker in there. That is, so all those GFCI protected outlets, this is where you're going to go to reset that. That generally trips due to too many appliances being plugged in, coffee makers, griddles, stuff like that, or one of those locations is wet. We need to go ahead and clean the water out of it. If it continues to trip after you reset it, go unplug some of those appliances and maybe try to reset it again. Up above that is our 12 volt panel right here. If we pull that cover off, we have our 12 volt bleed fuses. Once again, all labeled to let us know what they cover. If we have an issue with those 12 volt appliances or components, we want to come check and make sure the fuse isn't blown. Here we are in our bathroom. In our shower, we have our standard hot cold faucet as well as an on-off button on the shower head. That's generally used whenever you don't have a dump station or you don't have city water. You're trying to conserve the amount of water you put into your gray tank as well as the amount of water you use out of your fresh tank system. So it's just an easier way to turn that water off and on in between showering off and lathering up. We can go ahead and just hit that button up there versus trying to find the sweet spot for the hot water on our faucet. You want to use it, you can. If you don't have to. You have that dump station in city water, you don't need to. Beyond that, we do have a vent up in the ceiling with a fan on it. When you flip that switch right there, kick our 12 volt fan on. We want to emit any humidity and stuff out of here to help reduce the risk for mold and mildew in this bathroom. Our toilet right here, pretty standard. We have a valve there. We're going to push it to go ahead and flush anything down. Only things we're putting in there is number one, which is your liquids, right? We put that in there. We can just hit the pedal and flush. Number two, which is your solids. We want to make sure we fill that bowl about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way with water so we have enough to actually push those solids down to your black tank and not have any clogging in your system. In order to do that, barely push that pedal down right there and water will start coming out into that bowl and we can go ahead and fill it up. Number three is going to be RV toilet paper only. We want to make sure we get appropriate toilet paper so it degrades properly in that tank and doesn't cause any clogging whenever you go to flush it out. Last thing is our chemicals. Our chemicals help degrade whatever deposits are in there, and they also make it smell nice. In our bathroom, we also have our Furrion tankless water heater. We'll go over the operation of that right now. In our bathroom, we'll see our Furrion tankless control center. Pretty simple. We have our power on, off and on, kick it on. That's going to be our set point for our water. We can change that by hitting our up and down buttons right there. Our indicators right here, power, Fahrenheit, Celsius. If we want to change one or the other, we hit that bottom right button, and flame. Flame is only going to kick on whenever we turn that hot water on, indicating that system is working. And once again, on demand, it'll only come on whenever we have that hot water on. Not too much to go over in our bedroom. We do have storage under our bed. We have a second AC system for our front AC, so you'll have that second thermostat right there to control this AC. Now that's going to control only this one and it will not have heat on it. That is going to be for your living room thermostat only. That controls the heat in the entire unit. On our both AC assemblies, the one in the living room and in here, you're going to have this assembly right here. It does have a filter on it. We push these two tabs. When we pull that filter off, we need to clean it regularly so we're not restricting airflow to our unit. Beyond that, we have a little vent right here with a louver. You can go ahead and open it up. More air will exhaust out of that system. That is our quick dump valve. So if we want to cool off just this area quickly, we can go ahead and open it up and it'll force air just to this. When we want air to flow through our ceiling vents, we want to make sure that this is closed so you have more air pressure and flow throughout your entire unit. Up against the other wall, you're going to have your TV backer location with the coax plates and your 110 outlet for your cable antenna satellite. The antenna boost switch that we talked about, it's only going to be in the living room. That's going to boost for all of your coax plates throughout your unit.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV SuperStores, where we bring the how-to you.